see it the best you can, and there's never a guarantee, that the individual that's been nominated has a clear and concise judicial philosophy respecting the rule of law and respecting the Constitution, that has a view of the Constitution that, in my opinion, you want to call it originalist, if that's the phrase you want to use, that the way you amend the Constitution is to amend it, not by a judicial fiat. So where Justice Kennedy was not a predictable vote, I suspect, and you know that the president is going to be looking for a vote, a justice who will vote in a manner that has a consistent judicial philosophy. Again, you never are 100% sure, Sean. You do the best you can.
You do the best you can. I think the case in point, although he's no longer there, I keep bringing him up, is David Souter. I mean, I think he was one of those.
I mean, how about if you could do that for others too? I mean, how about John Kennedy nominates Byron White? To tell you how old I am, I appeared before Byron White, and Byron White was appointed by John Kennedy, was deemed to be a liberal, was going to be a liberal member of the Supreme Court, and was perhaps the most conservative justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. It is during his tenure. So you don't know, but you do have track records now. There's a whole list of appellate judges and some non-judges too that have written track records. You understand where they are, and you've got to ask the right questions on judicial philosophy. And I am sure that the White House was prepared and is prepared to move expeditiously on this. There's been.
Let me throw out some names. Yeah, I mean, Brent Kavanaugh, have you heard of his name?
Yeah, great.
What do you know about him? Or, for example, William Pryor's name. He was brought up the last time. That's another name.
Bill was on the short list last time. I've been friends with Bill Pryor, but I've also worked with Bill Pryor, actually. So he's been a great judge at the 11th Circuit. Brett Kavanaugh is another one. I knew Brett from his days in the Bush administration, knew him in private practice. We worked some cases together. He's been an excellent judge with the Court of Appeals. I think David mentioned Diane Sykes, another very, very well-respected Court of Appeals nominee, and there'll be some others. So the way it works is there's a list. The White House is constantly working on that list, narrowing it down, and then the president will once again do interviews, and usually the White House counsel participates in all of this, and it'll be narrowed down, and I suspect we'll get a nomination in short order. I don't want to predict the dates. I don't know the date, but none of this is shocking to a White House that is prepared, and this White House counsel's office and the White House. There was a lot of speculation on this, and there has been for a long time. And just the sheer age of the court, you always have to be prepared.
Agree with that as well. What about Paul Clement? Do you know him?
Yeah, I do. Clement was the Solicitor General of the United States under George W. Bush. He and I have done probably 4 or 5 cases together at the Supreme Court. Not a judge, excellent lawyer, has a tremendous reputation, would be a excellent Supreme Court justice.
Is there any other name on the short list that you could think of?
There's others out there. Viet Diddu, one of the partners of Paul Clement, could be on a short list for the Supreme Court.
What about Jay Sekulow on the short list? I'm just asking.
Too old. Then you want them in their late 40s, mid 40s, late 40s, early 50s. You don't want old geezers like he's 62-year-old. So and I'm plenty busy right now, in case you haven't noticed. So I think there's a lot of good options out there. What you're looking for is, like I said, I had the privilege of appearing before Justice Kennedy for 3 decades. He ruled with me more times than not. When he disagreed, his dissents were reasoned. I just disagreed with the reasons. What you're looking for now is, I think the president has an opportunity. If someone like Justice Gorsuch, that is that kind of judicial philosophy. So I think that's what you're looking for here.
Yeah. Well, I look at
men and women that are. There's a lot.
And by the way, this is where
that could do this.
This is where elections matter. Greg Jarrett. This is why. Right. This was one of the biggest. That's why I couldn't understand the Never Trumpers. Right. Because Donald Trump had promised an originalist, and he said, "Who are your favorite? Right. Who are your favorite Supreme Court justices?" He said Scalia, and he said Clarence Thomas. He was very clear. And that meant those are the type of justices he'd be looking for. And it appears, by the way, that he found one in Neil Gorsuch.
Right, he did. And look, 2 things. First of all, he's going to try to get, with the help of Mitch McConnell, to get the nominee through before the November elections. But Democrats will try to obstruct and delay all they possibly can. I mean, the president would love to have somebody seated by the beginning of the term in October. So that is one possibility, but it will only underscore the issue of the U.S. Supreme Court in the midterm elections, even if they get somebody seated ahead of time. Second of all, you want to find somebody, as Jay pointed out, who is younger. For example, Amy Barrett, Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit. She was born in 1972. So you would have a woman who is reasonably young, who would be on the court for a long time, and that is always important for presidents. That is their legacy. The other thing to point out is that you don't want to whiff. And for goodness sakes, the presidential landscape is littered with Republican presidents who made mistakes. Eisenhower said the two biggest mistakes he ever made, the appointment of William Brennan and Earl Warren, who turned out to be two Supreme Court justices who were liberal. Ronald Reagan was only 1 for 3. He appointed Sandra Day O'Connor as well as Anthony Kennedy.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, he only got one right, which
Why
was
is it?
Scalia.
Yeah, but the only problem is it's always Republican presidents that get it wrong.
Well, Kennedy appointed Whizzer White.
Okay,
all right.
We have to go back to 1961 to find the one example where a liberal, and Kennedy wasn't even a liberal. I mean, Kennedy, at least on the economy, and in many ways would be judged as a conservative today.
Right.
Let me bring David Schoen back in. David.
Right. One of the reasons I mentioned Diane Sykes is to the point Greg just made. That is, if you want to move this thing through quickly, and obviously that has to be balanced because it's an important decision, but she's less controversial. She certainly has the president's judicial philosophy, but with all due respect, I mean, Judge Kavanaugh and Judge William Pryor are going to be very controversial decisions because of some things they have said that have been brought up before. Some people thought some of them were the death knell. But let me make this point, because this, to me, is a tremendous program you're doing today. You're providing tremendous educational resource on this subject.
I've been accused of a lot worse, but look, go ahead. Thank you.
So many things these days are polarizing. Let's be clear. Sometimes originalist is used as a bad term to the left, or liberal is a bad term. Take a guy like Justice Scalia. I don't suggest you're going to find a duplicate of him, but he had, by all accounts, left and right, he had one of the great minds on the court. And you say he was predictable. On the other hand, who would think that when it comes to a criminal defendant, he would line up with them at times? For him, the confrontation clause, the right to really cross-examine and ferret out the truth, was of key importance to him. Now, you might say that's a liberal issue, but it's not. It's a constitutional issue, and that's how he saw it. So some of these, you're not going to find necessarily someone with the depth and breadth that he had. But let's be clear, we don't mean these words as bad words. He was a guy who thought through the issues, and that's how he came down.
But Jay, let's be very blunt and very honest here. I mean, knowing, the borking of Robert Bork, I mean, we go back there, there was probably no greater, smarter judicial mind ever that was more qualified to actually be on the Supreme Court. But then Ted Kennedy, it's now become a verb, if you will, or, borking, and literally they demonize this man in such an unfair, inaccurate way. It seems that if anybody has a history of writings on judicial philosophy or ideology or thought, it's almost a death knell for them.
Yeah, they can't do that anymore for two reasons. Number one, the rules of the Senate are now simple majority, so 50 plus 1, and that person is confirmed. Number two, the media landscape today is much different than it was during Robert Bork's era, in large part to what you're doing and what your colleagues do, both on TV and radio, and that has changed a lot of the way the perception goes and also how media controls. So I think what you're looking at is you're going to see a justice nominated. I think that will be very similar to Justice Gorsuch, and that manner will be confirmed. It's not going to be an easy process because unfortunately it's an ugly process, but the fact is there's going to be a new justice come the first Monday in October before the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yeah, and that's what it's going to be. But a president does have the right to appoint a justice that shares his judicial philosophy.
Absolutely.
And by the way, everybody should kind of be happy with Donald Trump's judicial philosophy in this sense. He doesn't believe in legislating from the bench. He believes in checks and balances and separation of powers. And he doesn't want... the left has always tried, and I'll throw this to Greg Jarrett, they have tried to achieve things through the courts that they would never achieve through the ballot box.
Right.
Because they legislate through the bench, and that is not the role of a judge.
No, and the perfect example is the travel ban, the Ninth Circuit, the so-called Nutty Nine, is composed largely of liberal justices who view the Constitution, as they did the travel ban, incorrectly. They view it in a very elastic sense, a present-day sense. It can mean whatever they want it to mean at any given time.